Welcome to the Scent of Beauty. My name is Susan, and this video is titled Affirmation, Friend or Host. I'm going to start off by referring to what is called the second brain, our stomach, and it reacts to a disproportionate amount of acid, and it's very, very painful. But there is some normalcy to the acid being released in our abdominal. It helps with our digestion. But what I really want to focus on is not our second brain. I want to talk about not being able to decode the complexity that is self. When we have these clusters of stressful ideas, when they're bunched and knotted up, and they become a collective amount of inconclusivity rapidly being released, pouring out, bubbling up faster than we could process. That is agonizing to the entire being. I want to mention right at this point that there are some normalcy to stress. We can't always confine and figure out our thoughts and process it very nice and neatly. However, excessive mental anguish have an acidic effect on our emotions. We try to tolerate or ignore it, or we endure. And that leads to the emotional cells that are so loaded with metastasized psychological ailments. I'll say shame, regret, sorrow, guilt, self-loathing are some of the excessive amount of acidities. And just like our second brain, that requires a buffer, a neutralizer with the effervescent reliever, like Alka-Seltzer. We do that with a prototype to help the brain digest and to process thoughts clearly. Most of the time we use an aggregate method in order to catch a breath. But the aggregate method that we use can be so encompassed that it's not one particular thing, it's several components, and in that there could be confusion also. That stems from a lack of erudition, not of ourselves, not having great knowledge or learning about components that is beneficial for our individual need. And so we look for mobility aids, portable providers are utilized in a symbiosis scheme. And I'm going to expand on that. We interpose, and that's placed or insert things in between ourselves, looking for that aid, looking to drink in some form of a relief. So in Latin, to put in, from inter, that's between, and Old French, it totally just simply mean to place. And what do we use in place of ourselves to affirm us, to quiet that white noise? Bing Cosby, a singer, songwriter, dancer. He was very talented, but he sang a song in 1939, And I want to mention some of the lyrics. The song is titled An Apple for the Teacher. And he sang that song with a lady by the name of Connie Boswell. But there are some excerpts that I'm going to take out of the entire song, some of the lyrics. And I think it will help me to expand what I'm talking about when we are looking for affirmation. The song, some of the words, at least the lines that I want to elaborate on is an apple for the teacher will always do the trick when you don't know your lesson in arithmetic. An apple for the teacher will meet great success if you forgot to memorize the Gettysburg Address. A little bit of glamour, a charm that's cute and quaint. Just bring an apple for the teacher when he starts to teach. I've heard about the student bringing an apple for the teacher, hence the teacher's pet. But look at the song and what it's inferring. Let's substitute one thing for another. Let's look for a provider when we have come face to face with complexities that we can't figure out. Let's look for an individual to affirm when we can't do arithmetic. And it's interesting because the branch of mathematics that is mentioned in the lyrics is in the range of that being, that individual that is stuck in that perpetual state of just being basic. It's funny that it's mentioning or referring to a child. For instance, they don't know automatically how to process solving and processing through problems. When an environment doesn't foster faith and hope that develops from within, the child learns to use charm. When trailing and lagging behind, when the faith and hope that is needed to propel has gone away, trying to get footing in deep waters, it's scary. And so, an apple for the teacher. It's charming, it's cute. But what about developing without being able to calculate what we really need? Learning to involve others because we did not learn the gift of patient persistence. I want to talk right now about the scent of errors. It is magnificent. Mistakes are great. It's a sign we have not quit, renounced, resigned, or stopped trying. And that's where that affirmation comes in, where we use different components because we need someone to validate, to affirm that not having personal faith and hope. We need that affirmation from another because we have to place the faith and hope somewhere, in someone, and in something. What are the messages, or the message that should be conveyed is the message in failed attempts are giving up is not an option. Children are intuitive and instinctual. And by observation, the proverbial apple offered by the child, that's symbolic. It's a symbolic exchange. I gained some insight on on symbolic unions, and I'm going to discuss that later on in the other video. By the way, this is part 1. If we follow the same line of thought as the lyrics, symbolic signs are taught to children, usually in elementary school. We know the plus sign, minus, to multiply, that sign, the division sign. And some children memorize the symbols before they could even spell the words addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. But this is the beginning of calculating, foundational. And I deliberately gave the symptoms, the excessive amount in the beginning so we could take a step back and look at how the process was slower, how it started at a fundamental level. The intimidation of arithmetic from the stance of a child, it's conceivable, right? It's conceivable to me when 1 plus 0 equal 1, 1 minus 0 equal 1, 1 times 1 equal 1, 1 divided by 1 equal 1. This is a crucial turning point, and I sense the sadness behind the symbolic message, affirming, and affirming. These 3 categories have one method: help me to get by. And that's what that apple symbolizes when we find one way of getting by. The technique of identifying the one that allows the problematic skirting, that helps us to cheat ourselves. Once the apple was received by the teacher from the student, she solidified the belief: I am hopeless and I have no faith beyond the point of the challenge. The repercussion of one conclusion, a mistaken final answer, ingratiate oneself. And that's the mobility aid, is when we ingratiate ourselves, we look for someone that could flatter us, that we could please, with the same idea of the action by the teacher to grant a pass instead of processing advancement. Friend or host. When we don't learn to celebrate, and a child usually don't learn this, celebrate mistakes. Stickers should be given to children when they raise their hands in class and say they give an incorrect answer. When a homework is completed with erased answers, those black smudges on the paper, that's where the great job, on that process area, that's the affirmations that needs to be celebrated. That builds confidence. It doesn't perpetuate despair. Affirmations are needed, and it's needed to help through the struggles and not at the end. The great job is not in the perfect 100, that 100 written in bold, bright letters with a sticker next to it, perfect. What about the process? But the individual who comes away with, I make too many mistakes, lapse in judgments, and even to the point of start to now internalize, I'm stupid, these unsupportive belief system, there's the one that starts to pour out and become clusters, the acidics that developed over time. And I'm going to stop the video right at this time, more so we could process what we've heard more than trying to find the answer. Process that mistakes are a gift. And in the next video, we're going to take a look at faith and hope in our persons. Then so many times we put them in several different places, in different providers, but we are worth that. It can be restored. It is the ultimate help in order to help us to affirm ourselves, our being. Welcome to the Scent of Beauty. Thank you.